evening, everyone. Thanks very much for joining and just bearing with us there. So you're very welcome to our virtual open event for RCSI's new Masters in Technology and Analytics in Precision Medicine. My name's Seamus. I've been probably dealing with some of you over the last few days as well. So I'll be moderating tonight's event. The format of the event this evening is it'll be about an hour. So we'll have a number of speakers going into detail in terms of the new program. And there will be a question and answer session at the end should you have any queries on the new Masters program as well. Just a bit of housekeeping. So just please note that the event is being recorded so that we'll be able to circulate it to you after and to a wider group. So do just bear that in mind if you are asking any questions and if I suppose if you don't want your face or voice to be shown or heard from a GDPR perspective and circulating. With that in mind, the chat function will be open throughout the event. So please post any questions that you have during the event and we will come to them at the end and answer them time permitting. So we hope you enjoyed the event, and with that I'm going to pass you over to Professor Brian Kirby, who's going to start.
Thanks very much, Seamus, and good evening, everybody. As Seamus said, I'm Professor Brian Kirby. I'm the Deputy Head of the School of Pharmacy and Biomolecular Sciences here in RCSI. Next slide, please, Sudip. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of history, really, tell you a little bit about RCSI, about the School of Pharmacy and Biomolecular Sciences, and how we came to develop the new Masters, some of the principles behind the design, and how that was all informed. I'm not going to go into the content of the actual Masters itself. I'll leave that to my colleagues, Dr. Sudipto Das and Dr. Katie Benson, who will speak after me. So I'm sure most of you know of RCSI. We were founded in 1784. You mightn't have known that. And we've been involved in, I suppose, health science education, medicine and health sciences since then. We are a fully fledged university of medicine and health sciences, but interestingly, a single faculty university. So we don't have engineering or arts, history, anything like that. So it is just focusing on medicine and health sciences. Next slide, please. So actually, I might be able to do that. So I just want to give a brief history. As I said, 1784, RCSI was founded, and lots happened from then to 2002, but I'm not going to talk about that. We don't have enough time. But in 2002, the School of Pharmacy was founded, educating undergraduate students in pharmacy, and our first graduates came out in 2006. RCSI then in 2010 gained independent degree awarding status, and in 2019 the new School of Pharmacy and Biomolecular Sciences, so a much larger school than the original School of Pharmacy, that was founded in 2019, and similarly in 2019 the RCSI achieved full university status. So if we go to the next slide, sorry, Sudip. So the school has a vision, of course, which is aligned with the RCSI vision. So it is very similar, and that is to be at the forefront of health sciences education, research and innovation, and leading the world to a better health. But also highlighted here, which I think is important for this Masters particularly, is that we're responsive to societal needs. And as I talk about the development of the Masters, you will see what I mean by that and its importance. Next slide, please. So this is a snapshot of the School of Pharmacy and Biomolecular Sciences, of the staff and research students that we have. It is ever changing, so this may already be out of date as PhD students graduate and new PhD students join, academic staff join as well. But the image on the right-hand side is a building you won't have seen, but it's an artist's impression of a new building that RCSI has permission to build on St. Stephen's Green. And the reason it's here, I suppose, is just to illustrate the continuous investment and development that is going on within RCSI. Next slide, please. So as with any good university, key to RCSI is impactful research. And within RCSI and within the School of Pharmacy and Biomolecular Sciences, we have 6 key research areas, and you can see these detailed here. But something that is really important and I suppose different for RCSI is that because we are a University of Medicine and Health Sciences, all academic staff have access to clinicians and clinician scientists. So we can conduct truly translational research, going from, as the phrase is, from bench to bedside, or from the lab to patients. And this is critical, I suppose, for any university, but it has also informed the development of this MSc. And it's on this research expertise that we have built and designed the MSc. Next slide, please. I'm not going to draw your attention to too much in this slide, but really it's again to underline the research credentials. And the figure that I want to mention is on the left-hand side, the field-weighted citation index. And this is a way of measuring the research impact of, in this case, the School of Pharmacy and Biomolecular Sciences. And what it looks at is how impactful your research is in a particular area, so in a particular field. And the world average is 1, and you can see in our case we're at 3.54, so significantly higher, just underlining the importance and the impact of the research being conducted in the School of Pharmacy and Biomolecular Sciences. Next slide, please. So I've told you about the history of the school, about a little bit about RCSI and the research. But going back to 2019, when RCSI received its full university status, the HEA, under the Government of Ireland and Future Jobs Ireland, launched their Human Capital Initiative, which has 3 different pillars. And we were particularly interested in pillar 3, which was the innovation and agility pillar. So the aim of this pillar, if we go to the next slide, please, was to develop focused programs designed to meet priority skill needs for enterprise. So essentially, this was a call to action, as it were, to develop new programs that would fill gaps in skills in enterprise. You can see that in one of the in the first objective there, to increase provision in areas of identified skill needs for enterprise, to future-proof graduates, particularly around emerging technologies, and really for the objectives of this MSc, to increase focus on transversal skills. And the transversal skills I will mention again later, but basically these are skills that help graduates to be workplace ready. So leadership, communication, teamwork, critical thinking, all of which have been shown to be extremely important in graduates when they enter the workforce. Next slide, please. So in addition to the objectives, there were certain principles that the HEA set out in their call. And I've just selected one of them, which was close collaboration and partnership with enterprise, both local, national, regional, and international. So that, with the objectives, plus some of the other principles that they wanted within these new programs, cutting edge technologies, innovative teaching methods, and pilot experimental approaches, we use these to help inform the development of the MSc. So we had the principles, the objectives, our research expertise, and finally, go to the next slide, please. We did some essentially market intelligence, and we looked at relevant policy documents, both national and international, such as Project Ireland 2040, the National Skills Strategy 2025, which I'm sure many of you have never heard of, never mind read, but actually they are extremely informative and do paint quite an impressive picture of industry and enterprise in Ireland, and project very nicely the skills requirements in those industries. But in addition to that, we also consulted with the IDA and potential enterprise partners, many of whom actually became full partners in the proposal to the HEA and in the development of the MSc. Next slide, please. And that is where we have come to now. So the Masters in Technologies and Analytics and Precision Medicine went, I suppose, from concept to reality now. And that's why we're doing this webinar. And really the aim of this is to develop in graduates advanced skills in the areas of genomics, data analytics, artificial intelligence, and connected healthcare. But as I mentioned already, underpinned by transversal skills, and I've listed all of the common transversal skills here. But as I mentioned in the previous slide, it was critical to have enterprise partnerships, and the names that you see listed here below, these are all the partners that were originally in the first proposal, and we are expanding on these partnerships now with other small, medium enterprises and multinational companies. So I'm going to hand over now to my colleague, Dr. Sudipto Das, who is the program director, and he will take you through some of the detail of the actual program as it has been designed. Thank you. You're muted, Sudip.
Oh, can everybody hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thanks, Brian, for the introduction, and welcome all of you to this webinar. So as Brian said, my name is Dr. Sudipto Das. I'm a lecturer within the School of Pharmacy and Biomolecular Sciences, and I am the program director for this MSc in Technologies and Analytics and Precision Medicine. What I will try and do in the next couple of minutes is to try and give you an overview in terms of the scope of the program. Why was this program developed in the first place, particularly focusing on precision medicine? More importantly for all of you, what exactly is entailed in the program, and as well as the fact that what are the different approaches and different support systems that we have in place for the students who will be enrolling for this program. So to start off with, just to give you an idea as to why should we study precision medicine, and to understand or to answer this question really, we need to look at the current clinical strategies that are in place in the clinics in terms of treating patients. So up until a couple of decades ago, the approach that was by and large used for any kind of disease, say for example cancer as an example, was on a cohort basis. So say for instance, if a cohort of patients had the same kind of cancer type, the patients would be given the similar kind of drug with the presumption that this would have a similar effect across all the patients. But in fact, as you can see on this slide, that is not the case. Some patients show an effect, some patients don't have an effect, and in fact, in certain cases, you might actually see side effects as well. And this is what we term as a one-size-fits-all approach, or rather an imprecision medicine strategy. And what we are now trying to do is we're trying to depart from this and move into an era of precision medicine. And one of the major factors that actually has driven this drive globally towards the area of precision medicine is underpinned by the fact that instead of looking the patients on a cohort basis or based on a single disease type, we need to start looking at these patients individually. Looking at these patients not only from the genetic point of view in terms of what the genetic makeup is of these patients, but also looking at the socio-demographic factors, the epidemiological factors, as well as other kind of lifestyle and environmental factors that ultimately might impact as to how a patient's disease progresses and develops. By doing so, what we are then trying to do is, and by looking at these patients at an individual level, we are trying to largely tailor the therapy. And by tailoring this therapy, we will get the kind of desired response that you would expect in the patients. And this is what we term as precision medicine. So the big question now lies is, while we know where we want to go, what are the challenges, or rather the bottlenecks, that has prevented the application of precision medicine strategies in the clinic? So this is where we kind of want to go, is towards the area of precision medicine, and to understand the current gap in terms of application of these precision medicine, we need to look closer in terms of the three key partners who are involved in applying precision medicine strategies. So number one would be the person who generates the data at the laboratory level and the person who analyzes and interprets this data. The person number two is the clinician to whom this data is conveyed to. And the third participant rather, is the actual patient. Now, what we do know is that one of the bottlenecks that is there is that while we are in an era where technology really has taken over and we have a massive surge of data, we do have a lack of understanding and novel tools being developed in terms of how to better understand, analyze, and interpret this data. And more importantly, how do we communicate this data to the clinician? From a clinical standpoint, we also face a challenge in terms of how best can a clinician understand these results, interpret these results, and have a two-way dialogue with the data scientist and the laboratory scientist to better communicate this data to the patient. More importantly, up until now, what we thought was this was a one-way communication. But what we have also learned is that this entire process is largely also informed by the patient himself. So basically making this into a complete cycle. And so to overcome this current gap in knowledge, what we now need to do is build and rather enhance these precision medicine concepts, encompassing concepts such as genomics, connected healthcare data analytics, critical thinking, as well as interpretation of these different data sets. So bearing that in mind, we have come up with this highly innovative and novel master's program around technologies and analytics and precision medicine. The idea behind this program is to encompass and basically cater to a large demographic of various individuals, spanning from individuals who are working either in the healthcare sectors or who are currently employed in industry, as well as graduates who are looking to upskill themselves in the area of precision medicine. The program has been made flexible to cater needs of these different individuals, making it into either full-time or a part-time course. Now, looking at the actual overall structure of this program itself, the program is divided into 4 key blocks. Each block constitutes of 3 modules, and as we go along the slides, I will be talking into a lot more detail as to what is the scope within each of these blocks. So for instance, the first block is genetics, genomics, and precision medicine, the second being data analytics, computational biology, followed by connected healthcare and innovation and leadership. More importantly, while these blocks have their own individual components, there is a significant crosstalk between these blocks, making this program a really large and holistic learning experience for the graduates. Followed by these blocks, we also have a research project element, which will be a key element for the students to complete. And as a part in terms of delivering the various components of this program, we are using various different teaching modalities, including self-directed learning, tutorials and workshops, hands-on practical experiences, as well as face-to-face and online lectures as well. Therefore, allowing us to essentially deliver this program in a highly blended learning environment. What we are aiming to do essentially is to generate graduates who are not only highly competitive for national and international fellowships and PhD studentships, particularly for people who are interested to pursue research as a career, more importantly, develop these individuals as data scientists, computational biologists, and for people who are involved in healthcare or clinicians as well, is to try and upskill them so that they become adept to the concepts of precision medicine. And as Brian alluded to before, the transversal skill element is really woven into this course, allowing the students to basically get a very strong understanding and develop and enhance their critical skills in areas such as creativity, innovation, communication skills, ultimately making them workplace ready. So now, as the next question, and which is one of the most important questions for all the students, is what will I study as a part of this course? So as I alluded to before, we have 4 key blocks, and we will now start looking at each of these blocks in a bit more detail. The first block is on genetics, genomics, and precision medicine. Now, as we have seen, to deliver precision medicine essentially involves, it's a 3-pronged approach. One is firstly to develop a core understanding of the concepts around precision medicine, followed by trying to understand the various tools and strategies that are involved in it on a day-to-day practice of precision medicine, and more importantly, how to apply this and how to implement this in a clinical setting, as well as bearing in mind the different considerations that one needs to keep in mind while applying this in a clinical setting. So within this block, the first module is the module on human genetics and genomics. This particular module has been designed to provide very fundamental concepts around basic molecular biology concepts. Moving on from there into the different omic strategies such as genomics, epigenomics, transcriptomics, so on and so forth, and essentially making you aware of the various do's and don'ts of these strategies, and as well as the different mechanisms that are involved in these different omic strategies. The next module within this is concepts of precision medicine. Herein, you will essentially be learning about the most recent and state-of-art methodologies that are utilized within precision medicine. In parallel, learning about the various considerations around ethical challenges, economic considerations that are important around these concepts of precision medicine. Finally, this will be followed by an applications module, which has largely been designed around a case study basis. And herein, you'll be looking at individual diseases and how precision medicine is applied to combat common challenges and common issues associated with these diseases. As Brian mentioned before, that we are a University of Health Sciences, so essentially these modules will be co-delivered by not only academic experts who are subject experts in the area of precision medicine, but more importantly by industry experts, enterprise partners, as well as clinicians as well, who are actively involved in developing precision medicine strategies in a clinical setting. The next module, the next block rather, is the data analytics and computational biology block. Now, what I did mention before is that we have, in the last decade, we have seen a massive upsurge in terms of data being generated, not only looking at mutations, for example, copy number changes from a genomic level, but also trying to understand how genes function at a transcriptomic level, as well as at an epigenomic level. And one of the challenges that does lie is, while this data has been generated at a massive level globally, we do have certain challenges and bottlenecks around the data analytical side of things. And to this end, what we are trying to achieve essentially is to combine these different data sets together and come up with a very comprehensive clinical and molecular model, which will allow us to understand these patients better and bring us one step closer to applying these strategies, these precision medicine strategies in the clinic. So to that end, one of the first modules as a part of this block is the bioinformatics and biostatistics block. And this particular module essentially will provide you with a very clear understanding around the various statistical concepts and the different data sets and databases that are available to better understand these different omic strategies. This will then be followed by a very practical focused approach to make the students adapt to the different programming languages that are regularly used to analyze and interpret these different data sets. This will then be followed by Computational Biology 2 module that will allow the students to be equipped with advanced programming and statistical skills, allowing them to integrate these different data sets together, not only across the different data sets, but more importantly as well, integrating this data with the clinical data to make a sense of these data sets, allowing us to understand how in a given disease setting does this actually function. From that standpoint, and given the nature of the block, this particular block has been designed to focus largely on practical focus sessions, allowing the students to practice and get hands-on training on platforms such as RBioconductor, Python programming, as well as advanced concepts like multi-omics analysis and data integration strategies. The next block is a highly novel block and a very innovative block rather, which is focused on connected healthcare. And the reason why connected healthcare has become really important and highly topical is around the fact that we are kind of moving towards a very patient-centered approach. And by looking at that, we need to look at how technology has really advanced us to look at these patients closely. And this largely kind of encompasses on the fact that we have gadgets and particularly wearables and sensors that have been traditionally used, such as a blood glucose monitoring device or a blood pressure monitoring device as well. And more recently, Fitbits that are used by a lot of us to monitor our day-to-day physical activity. And what these wearable devices rather do is they generate a large amount of data. And what scientists now are trying to do in conjunction with data scientists and data engineers is to try and not only look at these different data sets individually, but more importantly, combine this data with electronic health records, as well as the biobank data to enhance these different gadgets and to make them and to try and tailor these towards towards a certain patient's need. Within this, we will be looking at Internet of Medical Things, virtual visits and telemedicine, which has become extremely popular in the era of COVID, as well as sensors and wearables that I just mentioned to you now. Within this block, one of the first modules will be centered around artificial intelligence and machine learning. Herein, what we will essentially be looking to do is to firstly familiarize the students with the basic concepts around machine learning, and as well as allow them to get hands-on training around the various machine learning strategies such as feature identification, feature selection, integration, using methods such as neural networks, as well as supported vector machines. Moving on from there, the next module will focus on software as medical devices. Herein, we will be looking at as to how these devices are developed, how the information is gathered, and more importantly, view this from a point of view of stakeholders, and try and evaluate the various different considerations around clinical, regulatory, and the industrial sectors as well. The third module as a part of this block will be focused on Internet of Medical Things. And this is essentially going to be looking at 4 different key aspects around connected health, including user-centered design, creating actionable data, behavioral change, as well as current applications of Internet of Medical Things. The idea behind this particular module is to essentially look at certain cases and certain diseases where Internet of Medical Things and softwares are very commonly used to gather data, and to see how connected healthcare has actually worked in these disease settings, allowing us to pave way and to see if similar strategies can be applied across other disease settings as well. As Brian mentioned to you before, these modules have really been developed and will be delivered in conjunction with both academic as well as enterprise partners, such as S3 Connected Health, Data Sciences, and the Artificial Intelligence Hub based in Novartis, Ireland as well. Given the fact that transversal skills in order to make a person workplace ready, not only is it important for us to understand the various strategies and applications around precision medicine and the different considerations that I've talked to you about before up until now, it's also important to look at the person from a point of view of developing their transversal skills, particularly focus on innovation and leadership. To that end, the 3 modules that essentially be encompassed within this block, the first module will focus on leadership development, and this essentially will be delivered by experts within RCSI who are regularly involved in developing strategies around leadership development, not only from an academic and healthcare perspective, but also from an industry perspective as well. The next module within this block will be focused on contemporary issues in healthcare. This particular module will have a significant crosstalk with the connected healthcare modules that I just spoke to you about before, looking at the various disparities around healthcare at both a national and international level, with a particular focus on design thinking as well. Finally, given the fact that, and in line with RCSI's motto of essentially promoting innovative strategies and entrepreneurship strategies, we'll be looking to develop these kind of creative skills and innovation skills amongst the students. Following these 4 blocks, the next part of the graduate's journey as a part of this MSc program will be to carry out a research project. The research project will be for 12 weeks and essentially will be equivalent to 30 ECTS credits. Now, to essentially cater to the different demographics of the students who will be coming as a part of this program, we have made the project choices fairly flexible. To that end, one of the first choices is going to be the traditional approach, where essentially academic and clinical experts or enterprise partners will be providing a list of projects where the students can identify and select the projects of their choice. Alternatively, as the course developed and as the students build a relationship with their academic partners or their enterprise partners, the students will be given the opportunity to directly liaise with these experts and develop their own project proposal. The next option is really catered around students who are currently employed at a workplace setting. Herein, the student essentially can carry out a project at their existing with their existing employer, with the idea that their existing employer or line manager becomes their primary supervisor for the project, and they will also nominate an RCSI based co-supervisor who will be the co-supervisor for the entire duration of the project. Now, to that end, as Brian alluded to before, the industry partners who will be actively engaging to develop and host students as a part of the research projects include S3 Connected Healthcare, Novartis Ireland, Congenica, Almac, Fine Therapeutics, Inflection Biosciences, and Aerogen. In terms of assessing the project will essentially be assessed using two different modalities. The first one will be, and this is more kind of geared around the fact that the student needs to develop a complete understanding in terms of what the project is about. And to facilitate that, the student essentially will write up the entire project proposal in the form of a grant proposal, which will then be evaluated and will be equivalent to 20% of the total project grade. And finally, once upon completion of the project, the research project will essentially be assessed based on a submitted research report and a presentation as well, which they will be doing in front of their colleagues and appointed evaluators as well. Now, I'm not sure if Brian is there. Is he there?
I am.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so it's with great pleasure. I'm going to pass the podium on to our one of our enterprise partners, Dr. Brian Flatley, who's the Vice President of Consulting Services at S3 Connected Healthcare, and he's really played a pivotal role essentially in developing this the Connected Healthcare block of this program, and will also be actively involved in delivering it. So over to you, Brian.
Thank you very much, Tulipu, and I'm not going to hold anybody too long. But really just give you an overview at S3 Connected Health. We're a digital health professional services and product-based company, and solely focused in the area of connected health, in particular, as you talked about, the production of software as a medical device and the regulations that go with that, and development of IoT systems. And we're focused on the end-to-end delivery. So what we require is graduates and employees with a very wide set of skills and knowledges to really understand everything from what is the problem we're solving, and based on that, it's not just very obvious what we're looking at from a healthcare system, but taking into account things like patient perspective, taking into account reimbursement systems, data architectures, how we would scale it, and how we deliver it. How will we solve that problem? So how will we build it? If we build it, how do we meet regulatory requirements in multiple countries? And how do we scale it as well? And that's obviously the advantage of digital systems, is that they are built to scale beyond single countries. So, based on that need, we're always looking for people and graduates with a very wide set of skills who can think very holistically, almost at a whole system change about this new type of healthcare delivery, the precision medicine. Taking into account not only the kind of the laboratory side, or the omics side, the genetics, the multi-omics approach, but also taking into account, for example, when we build connected systems and take data in from patients, how do we digest that, and how do we improve care because of it? So really, over the past number of months, it's been great to work with Brian, yourself, and more recently Rob, engaged around what would be important elements for us that we feel are industry important to include in this master's. And we're delighted to kind of have contributed to that, and also into the future be able to deliver some of those lectures and some of those invited speakers as part of our network as well. And we have recruited graduates from a very wide variety of very vertical, or what I describe as vertically focused backgrounds, biomedical scientists, physios, nurses. So I'm really excited to look and to meet the graduates that will come out from this program with a great foundation in some of the principles across all of those different disciplines, but also being able to ability to think through the kind of a wide set of skills as well. So that's kind of it from my side, but I'm very happy to have a discussion with anybody, on the line offline. Feel free to reach out to me as well to discuss kind of our thinking around graduates and what's important in this industry as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Brian. Really appreciate that. It was really insightful. So I'm now going to pass the on to my colleague, Dr. Catherine Benson, who's a module lead and also lecturer in computational biology, who will essentially be talking to you about program delivery and the career opportunities that associated with this master's program.
Thanks, Judith. So yes, as Judith mentioned, I'm going to be delivering some content as part of this course, and I'm keen to show you you've seen kind of the lead into the program and kind of what you'll be learning, but this is how it's actually going to happen on the ground. And next slide there, please. So we're very lucky in this course that we're going to be having content being delivered from a number of different experts. So the first kind of group of people who will be teaching on the course are academic experts. Now, largely these will be coming from RCSI, and in particular, this kind of single faculty of medicine and health sciences department. So we will be teaching in the areas of genomics, computational biology, connected healthcare, and data analytics. Because we have this single faculty university where we have very close connections with a number of clinician scientists who actually apply precision medicine techniques in clinic every day. And many of these clinician scientists will be delivering content in the areas of cancer, infection biology, and pulmonary diseases, to name a few. And as we've seen with Brian there a moment ago, we have a number of important industry and enterprise partners who have a kind of complementary skill set and who will be delivering content again on genomics, machine learning, and connected healthcare. And just some of those companies that will be delivering content are Congenica, Novartis Ireland, and S3 Connected Health. Next slide there, please. So we're very keen that this course be taught as a kind of blended learning course. We're going to have a lot of lectures which are delivered in class, face-to-face, while also being streamed live, as well as potentially online live lectures as well. We'll be delivering a number of workshops and tutorials which allow us, to actually kind of get to grips with some of these techniques and how they're actually used. And those will be in class, face-to-face, but also again streamed live. As well as these workshops and tutorials, there will actually be practical sessions that show you how to use some of the tools that we'll be teaching you about in your lectures. And those will be in class and again facilitated by the expert lecturers and clinicians, etc., mentioned on the previous slide. We'll also have some group and roundtable discussions between students and the subject matter experts. And this really helps you to get to grips with the data and kind of, it really helps your learning to discuss this with your peers and also really pick the brains of these people who will be delivering the content on the course. Every student will be assigned an academic tutor and potentially an industry-based mentor who will follow them throughout the course and help to provide support in your learning. Next slide there, please. So there's a number of different ways that your skills will be assessed during the course. About 20% of your examinations will be through kind of traditional examination formats like multiple choice questions or MCQs and short note, more essay type questions. We'll also be assessing you using assignments and presentations, which will be kind of the primary way that you'll be assessed, and that'll be through both individual and group work. And we'll also be using case or problem-based assignment topics to try and get you to really apply your knowledge and demonstrate that you understand what we've been conveying to you. So these kind of mixtures of assessment techniques will allow us to evaluate your transversal skills, like your teamwork, your communication, your critical analytical skills, as well as your actual understanding of the content and ability to apply it. Next slide, please. So let's look at the nitty-gritty of the actual timetable. So there's going to be two options. There's a full-time and a part-time course. So here we have the layout for the full-time course, where we'll be having 2 modules running in parallel in blocks of 4 weeks. Now, this is a full-time program, but we envisage that it will be possible for students who are in full-time employment to take the course on part-time or full-time if they have a supportive manager and are able to complete all of the tasks and complete all of their learning, and they're confident to do that. So the first block will run from September until Christmas, and that'll be that 4-week block with 2 modules running back to back. Second semester running January to spring break, and then finally a third block where you'll be doing your research project. Next slide, please. In contrast, here we have the part-time course, which instead of 1 year will run over the course of 2 years. Your semesters will be exactly the same, but instead of having 2 modules running back to back, you have a single module running in each of those 4-week blocks. Next slide, please. So The course really has a big advantage in that we have access to really strong research infrastructure at RCSI, including a high-end computing cluster, which is absolutely essential to some of these blocks that Sudipta was talking about, particularly around computing and actual computational biology approaches. We'll also be providing students with access to the interactive student platform Moodle and Blackboard Collaborate, where a lot of the online teaching will be taking place. The RCSI Compass office will be providing superb career and student welfare support and really kind of giving students that support that they need while they go through the course. And in a similar manner, we'll be providing career guidance seminars, including CV clinics throughout the course as well. Students will be able to take advantage of workshops on industry-focused aspects like entrepreneurship and business development, organised by the RCSI Office of Research and Innovation. And certainly, as Sudipta has already mentioned, there's going to be fantastic learning throughout, actually built into the module as well on your leadership, etc., etc. Okay. Okay, so thank you, Sudipta. I'll pass back over to you to kind of lead us in some questions.
Thank you, Katie. Before we go into some of the common questions that have been asked to date, I'm just going to go to Seamus. Seamus, are there any questions in the chat box that we can address?
No, we've no questions so far, but I would encourage anyone who does have any questions, if they just feel more comfortable, if they want to post them in the chat function, and we will address them. And as Brian flatly said from S3 Connected, if you have any queries from his side as well, and if you want to post anything as well. We've been getting a number of queries in over the last week or so. So I'll pass over to Sudip if he maybe wants to start the ball rolling in terms of some of those more common questions, and if anything comes in the chat, then we'll address them as well. Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Seamus. So one of the first questions that we did get was, what is the entry criteria for the program? So amongst the entry criteria for the program is that the applicant should have successfully completed an undergraduate degree. So whether it be a pharmacy or medicine, say for example, in a healthcare sector, would be a 2-1 honours equivalent, or a primary degree in a program with a minimum of 2-1 honours or equivalent. That degree could be in a biological area, chemical, mathematical, or statistical science, including computer science as well. On the other hand, if candidates who hold a primary degree with this, we would also be encouraging students to apply for where they have got a second class grade, essentially a 2-2, in a biological, chemical, mathematical, or statistical sciences, again including computer sciences, and with industry experience as well, will also be considered. In terms of language requirements, this is particularly for students where English is not the first language. The students should have to demonstrate their language ability through either an IELTS certificate, so the International English Language Testing System, with the average score of 6.5 as the normal university guidelines. And the student also needs to have satisfactory proof. If they don't have IELTS, the IELTS score, they can also have a satisfactory proof that their basic medical degree or their primary degree was completed through essentially through English, being the main language that was delivered in. The next question then is around the MSc program. Is the MSc program recognized for the purposes of applying for a student visa for Ireland? So the answer to that question is yes. So students who have successfully secured a place in the program will be able to apply or utilize the letter of offer. The only thing in this case is that we will encourage the students that they have to liaise with the immigration services independently to secure their own visa. From an RCSI point of view, we will be able to happily be able to provide you with a letter of offer that you can then utilize for your visa application process. But also to be mindful of the fact that the course will commence in September 2021. So just to bear those timelines in mind. The next question then was, what is involved in the application process? So the online application, as all of you would know, is open until the 31st of July. The application essentially, once the date closes, all the applications will be reviewed, and where in certain cases where applicable, we might contact the applicants directly in order to get further information. The applicants then will be informed essentially by early August in terms of outcome of their application, and the course, as I mentioned before and as Katie alluded to, will start with effect from 6th of September 2021.
The next question then was, is there an exit criteria for the program? So as we had mentioned, the MSc program is for 90 ECTS credits. We also have other exit qualifications as well, which includes a postgraduate diploma, which is for 60 ECTS credits, and a postgraduate certificate as well in 30 ECTS credits as well. So I don't know if I think there are questions.
Yeah, so Dip, we have a few questions here, so I'll just take them in the order that they came in.
Yeah.
So one which I think you've addressed is just, would you say it's too late to apply for this course for entry into September 2021?
Not at all. As we said, that the applications are open till the end of July, so we would absolutely encourage you to apply at your earliest convenience. So it's not too late at all.
And just to build on that further, so for applications, so it's on the RCSI website under postgraduate top courses, and it's depending on which course you're applying to, full-time or part-time. There's two separate links on that, but if you do have any problems on that, just email the inbox on that as well. The next question is from Ryan. In terms of applying from a healthcare degree background, will only medical or pharmaceutical graduates be considered, or those with a degree in a health science degree be considered, for example, physiotherapy?
Yeah, so the answer to that is yes, because it is still a health sciences degree. So we would absolutely encourage again. It is not limited to medical or pharmaceutical graduates. We will be taking in any health sciences degree. So physiotherapy as well will be absolutely applicable under that category.
Okay, perfect. And the next two are probably kind of similar. It's around time commitment hours. So first one is, I just wanted to ask the expected time commitment hours was per week, per module. I asked this as the last speaker alluded to the potential to do the full-time course while working, which is correct. And this individual in particular is asking because they are working in an emergency department setting as a doctor.
Yeah, so in that relation, essentially what we have calculated is for the full time, the maximum requirement in terms of time commitment is going to be 20 hours. Now, this essentially includes your lecture, you're attending the lectures and the practicals. So that's for the full time. That's 20 hours for in terms of per week. And then in terms of the part-time, this then becomes half, obviously, because you only have one module running for the 4 weeks. So just to bear in mind that for the full-time course, you do have two modules that are running in parallel in that four weeks, as Katie had alluded to before. So for that reason, it's 20 hours. And then for the part-time, that then reduces half and becomes 10 hours essentially per week.
Okay, and I think that covers the first part of Ellen's question in terms of the part-time hours, because they're not living near to RCSI, but they. Sorry, so that you want to.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, so we, as a part of this, and obviously we are living in an era of COVID, so having face-to-face interactions is quite limited. What we are trying to aim at the minute is for the full-time option, if that's a factor that you don't live close to RCSI, all we are basically expecting people in the first within the first semester essentially is that for the first semester, so between September to December, the commitment or the face-to-face or the expectancy of students to come on campus is basically 1 day a week for the first 4 weeks, then 3 days essentially, so 3 days for the next 4 weeks, and then that'll be it. So essentially you're only looking at an engagement of essentially about 4 days in terms of the entire semester where you will be getting a face-to-face. So just in case if that becomes an issue. And I think the next question then was, what is the main technologies used in the course? I think bioconductor.
Sorry, Sidip, let me just turn on my camera. My apologies. I just wanted to come in really with regards to the last point as well to add to it. I suppose one of the principles with the HEA application and you know the objectives under which we designed this was flexibility, to try to use online technologies where possible to have live online lectures, and yes, do have some face-to-face where necessary, but the aim is, as Sidipto said, to try to minimize that and let students know up front approximately what that commitment was. There might need to be slight changes given COVID, but also space requirements. But really, it's to try to be as flexible as possible so that as many people as possible can do it. Even with regards to the lectures which will be delivered online, the aim is to have those at times that can fit with people's working day. So again, depending on availability of the academics and our industry partners, but the hope would be, for example, to try to schedule them in and around sort of 4 to 6 in the evening, so that people could have at least most of their working day done before that. So thanks, sorry for cutting in there.
No, not at all, Brian. Thanks a million for that. But actually, just finally, a final add-on point to that as well, and something that Katie had also mentioned is that a majority of these lectures will actually be live streamed as well. So if in case you can't attend it, for whatever reason, you will be able to attend it, at the comfort of your own home, and majority of these will be recorded as well. So you should be able to view them at your own time pace as well. So we really tried to be as flexible as possible, particularly bearing in mind that a lot of our incoming students will actually be working full-time, as Ellen mentioned as well. And in terms of technologies then, Bioconductor is something I did mention. Python is another common language that is used very regularly for omic analysis. We will also be using, there will be elements of Perl as well wherever required, but predominantly object-oriented programming languages and Bioconductor and Python will be the 3 key platforms that you'll be using across the board.
Yes, just to add there, obviously a grounding in Linux and on OR itself as well.
Perfect. And then, Seamus, I think the last question there is with regards to the opportunities, I think.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, in particular focus on if they have a medical background, but yeah, maybe give an overview of the opportunities, and then go.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, essentially the program, when we were developing it, it kind of was also informed to us by the clinicians as well, because one thing is that medical practitioners essentially are sort of to a certain extent struggling at the minute is as we are moving into an era of genomics where, personalized medicine is becoming really important. Lots of patients, when they come into the clinic, samples are often sent for sequencing and reports are generated by companies such as Foundation Medicine or even 23andMe, which a lot of general public is actually aware of. So the bottleneck there, which I kind of had mentioned to before, is trying to understand this data. Not only trying to understand the biology behind the data, but I think it's quite important for the clinicians to also know how the data is analyzed, so you can know about the holistic approach, not just looking at the interpretation of the data around that aspect as well. So that's one thing. The other thing as well is with connected healthcare. It is quite important for the clinicians to be aware that not only is a wearable device and the data that's generated from these devices really important from the standpoint of the individual patient, but how does that inform the clinician and how can you ultimately impact in enhancing these devices further? So it really is kind of trying to upskill yourself so you are able to contribute more in terms of your clinical practices and become more adept as these sequencing practices become more and more applicable in the clinic. I think there is Ellen just had a comment there that, so I may not need to attend face-to-face as a part of the part-time option and can attend live to recorded lectures. The long and short of that is yes, to a certain extent. The only part where we are absolutely going to encourage students to attend it face-to-face is where the practical sessions will be done. So these are programming, as I mentioned before, in block 2, which is the computational biology block. These practical sessions will be carried out in person because it's to maximize the efficacy of what is being taught and to make sure any kind of issues or any teething issues that the students have is ironed out then and there itself. So actually having these, attending these face-to-face will be quite critically important, both for the full-time and the part-time. So as a part-time option or as a part-time student, when you actually are doing the module, you will be expected to come onto RCSI to actually do this face-to-face, to do these practicals face-to-face. I'm not sure if there is anything else.
No, I think that's it. Does anybody else have any final questions before we finish up? Okay, if we have nothing further, then we'll finish up. I'd just like to thank all the speakers and thanks for the questions also. I will circulate this recording as well. Sorry, there's just one last question coming in there.
Oh yeah, no problem.
So are practicals an evening time for the part-time option as well?
Yes, so as Brian mentioned to you before that, now this is something that we are still working on. This is all subject to room availability, as you would appreciate. It's a fairly big university, and we have a lot of things that go on in parallel, particularly in the middle of the semester. So we are trying to do this. We're trying to see if the practicals can be facilitated in the evening. So I don't really have a short answer for you for this at the moment, but we are trying to cater to that, and we are mindful of it anyways.
Perfect. So I will circulate the recording tomorrow, and I will also give the link for applications as well. And if anyone has any queries following the event and that they were looking for more information, please do email into our inbox, and we will get back to you. And also, as Dr. Brian Flatley said, if you have any questions in relation to from an industry perspective, please email them in also, and we'll endeavour to answer them for you as well. But yeah, I would just like to thank you all for your attendance, and with that, I will finish up the event now. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.